The plate shattered against the wall. 6 inches from her head, Maya pressed her pregnant belly against the cold kitchen floor, shaking, bleeding 7 months along, and completely alone. Her mother-in-law stood over her, smiling. Not a crazy smile, not an angry smile, a calm, satisfied Sunday morning smile. The same smile she wore to church every week. The same smile that got 47 likes on Facebook. "Clean it up," Gloria said. "And if you tell my son, I will make sure you never hold that baby." For 6 months, Maya lived in hell behind a white picket fence, starved, beaten, locked in a basement, her phone destroyed, her friends lied to, her husband manipulated into believing she was losing her mind. She had no money, no family, no way out. But here is what Gloria did not know. Maya was the daughter of a soldier, and soldiers do not surrender. Even when the battle looks impossible, they find a way. Maya found hers. And what happened next brought Gloria's perfect world crashing down in a way she never saw coming. But before that moment of justice, Maya had to survive 3 devastating betrayals that would push her closer to death than she had ever been. The third one came from the last person she expected. Stay until the end, because the final twist in this story left our entire team speechless. The lesson. This story carries one truth that every person needs to hear. Abuse does not always leave visible scars. Sometimes it hides behind a Bible, a smile, and a Facebook post. And the most dangerous prison is not one with bars. It is one where the world believes your captor is a saint. If this story helps even one person recognize the signs, speak up, or reach out for help, then every word was worth it. If this story moved you, do 3 things right now. Hit that like button so more people can find this video. Drop a comment and tell us where you are watching from and which moment hit you the hardest. And if you have not subscribed yet, join our family. We post stories like this every week. Stories that stay with you long after the video ends. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know whose life it might change. The front door of the perfect suburban home exploded inward. 6 armed officers poured through, weapons drawn, boots thundering against the hardwood floors. A woman in a floral dress stood in the living room, clutching a Bible to her chest, smiling sweetly as if she had been expecting company for a Sunday brunch. "Officers, there must be some mistake. I am just a grandmother, preparing for my grandchild's arrival." Her voice was honey, her eyes were poison. Upstairs, behind a locked door, reinforced with a deadbolt that had no business being on the inside of a home, a pregnant woman lay curled on the cold basement floor. Her lips were cracked. Her hands were bleeding. Her swollen belly rose and fell with shallow, desperate breaths. She whispered one word over and over, her voice barely louder than a prayer. "Please, please, please." But how did we get here? How did a pregnant wife end up imprisoned in her own home while her mother-in-law smiled for the cameras and quoted scripture? How did a woman who posted Bible verses on Facebook every morning become the monster hiding behind the cross? The answer is simpler and more terrifying than you might think. Because the most dangerous abusers do not look like monsters. They look like grandmothers. They look like church elders. They look like the sweet woman next door who always brings cookies to the neighborhood barbecue. And by the time you realize what they really are, it is already too late. Or is it? This is the story of Maya Adams Williams, a pregnant wife who was tortured daily by her mother-in-law, a woman who lost everything, her phone, her friends, her freedom, her hope, a woman who was told she was nothing, that no one would ever believe her, that she would never escape. She was wrong about that last part, but the road to freedom nearly killed her. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video Share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and subscribe to our channel. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Is it the United States? Canada? The United Kingdom? Jamaica? South Africa? Or somewhere else? We want to know. And stay until the very end, because the final twist in this story made our entire team gasp. Now let us go back to the beginning. 6 months before that door was kicked in, Maya Adams Williams was happy. Genuinely, completely, foolishly happy. She stood in the empty living room of the apartment she had shared with her husband Daniel for 2 years, watching the movers carry out the last of their furniture. Her hand rested on her belly, just barely showing at 3 months pregnant, and she felt that warm glow of a life falling perfectly into place. "That is the last box," Daniel said, wrapping his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Ready for the next chapter?" "Your mother's house," Maya said, and she tried to keep the hesitation out of her voice. She really did. Daniel turned her around gently, tilting her chin up so she had to look at him. He had those eyes, warm brown eyes that made her feel safe, that made her believe everything would be okay, even when her gut told her otherwise. "3 months," he said. "That is all, just until we save enough for the down payment on our own place. My mom lives alone in that big house since Dad died. She is lonely. She needs family around her." "I know, but I barely know her, Daniel. We have had dinner with her, what, 4 times? And she loved you every single time. She told me you were the best thing that ever happened to me. She is already buying baby clothes, Maya. She is thrilled." Maya wanted to argue. She wanted to say that something about Gloria Williams made her uneasy, that the woman smiled too wide and held eye contact too long, and that her compliments always felt like they were wrapped around something sharp. But Daniel looked so hopeful, so certain, and Maya did not have a counter-argument that would not sound ungrateful or paranoid. So she smiled and said, "Okay." 3 months. That was her first mistake. Gloria Williams was waiting for them on the front porch of her immaculate colonial home at 47 Westbrook Lane. She wore a pressed linen blouse and tailored slacks, her silver hair swept into an elegant bun. She looked like something out of a magazine spread about graceful aging. She looked like someone's perfect mother. "My babies are home!" Gloria cried, rushing down the steps with her arms open wide. She hugged Daniel first, long and tight, and then she turned to Maya, with tears in her eyes, actual tears, and pulled her into an embrace that smelled like lavender and expensive face cream. "Maya, sweetheart, welcome home. I have been counting the days." The house was beautiful, clean in a way that felt aggressive. Every surface gleaming, every pillow perfectly placed. Gloria gave them a tour, showing off the guest room she had prepared with new linens and fresh flowers on the nightstand. "I want you to be comfortable," Gloria said, squeezing Maya's hand. "This is your home now. Anything you need, anything at all, you just ask me." That first week was a dream. Gloria cooked elaborate meals, set the table with her good china, and insisted Maya sit down and rest while she cleaned up. She took Maya shopping for maternity clothes. She drove her to her prenatal appointment and sat in the waiting room reading a magazine, beaming when the doctor said the baby was healthy. She posted photos on Facebook constantly. Maya and Gloria at the mall smiling, Maya and Gloria in the kitchen baking cookies, a selfie of the 3 of them, Maya, Daniel, and Gloria, on the front porch with the caption, "So blessed to have my beautiful daughter-in-law living with us. God is so good. Hashtag family first. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag grateful grandmother." The post got 47 likes. Gloria responded to every single comment with a paragraph of gratitude so long it could have been a sermon. Maya laughed about it with Daniel that night in bed. "Your mom responds to Facebook comments like she is writing thank you notes for a state dinner. Daniel chuckled. That is just how she is. She takes everything seriously. Maya almost let herself relax. Almost. On the 14th day, Daniel packed a bag for a week-long business trip to Chicago. A big project, his boss said, could not be avoided. He kissed Maya goodbye at 6 in the morning, told her he loved her, told her to take care of herself and the baby, told her to have fun with his mom. She adores you, he said from the doorway. You two are going to be best friends by the time I get back. His car pulled out of the driveway at 6:15. Maya watched from the bedroom window as the taillights disappeared down the street. The house was quiet, too quiet. She found Gloria in the kitchen, standing at the counter with a cup of coffee. The morning light came through the window and caught Gloria's face at an angle that made her look different somehow. Harder, older, like a mask had shifted half an inch to the side. Sit down, Gloria said. Her voice was different too. The warmth was gone, pulsing, replaced by something flat and cold, like a stone dropped into still water. Maya sat. Gloria did not look at her. She sipped her coffee slowly, deliberately, letting the silence stretch until it became a physical weight pressing down on Maya's chest. Let me explain how this is going to work, Gloria said finally. While my son is away, you will cook, you will clean, you will do laundry. You will keep this house spotless. You will not touch the television. You will not sit on the living room furniture. You will not use the good dishes. Those are mine. Maya opened her mouth. Nothing came out. You will eat after I eat, whatever is left. You will not call Daniel to complain. He is my son. He has been my son for 32 years. You have been his wife for 2. Who do you think he will believe? Gloria, I do not understand. I thought we were... Gloria's hand shot out so fast Maya did not even see it coming. The slap cracked across her left cheek like a gunshot. Maya's head snapped to the side. Stars exploded behind her eyes. Her hand flew to her face, more from shock than pain, although the pain came fast and hot. Do I look like I'm joking? Gloria said. Her voice had not risen. She had not shouted. That was somehow worse. Maya stared at her mother-in-law. The woman who had hugged her on the porch, the woman who had posted heart emojis on Facebook, the woman who had cried tears of joy 2 weeks ago. That woman was gone. Maybe she had never existed. Gloria took another sip of coffee, calm as a church deacon on a Sunday morning. Now, clean the kitchen, and when you are done, clean the bathrooms. And when you are done with that, start on the laundry. There is a list on the refrigerator. I expect everything on that list done before Daniel calls tonight. And when he calls, you will smile. You will tell him everything is wonderful. You will tell him you and I are having a lovely time. Gloria set down her coffee cup and walked toward the living room. At the doorway, she paused without turning around. And Maya, if you even think about telling anyone what happens in this house while my son is away, I will make you wish you had never been born. The door closed behind her. Maya sat at the kitchen table, her hand still on her burning cheek, and realized with a clarity that cut through her like ice water that she had walked into a trap. A beautiful, well-decorated, lavender-scented trap, and the door had just locked behind her. The first week was the training period. That is what Maya called it later, when she could talk about it at all. Gloria was not random in her cruelty. She was systematic, methodical. She was breaking Maya down the way you break a horse, with exhaustion, isolation, and just enough unpredictability to keep the fear constant. The phone went first. 3 days after Daniel left, Gloria picked up Maya's cell phone from the kitchen counter, examined it like she was studying an insect, and dropped it into a sink full of soapy water. Oh no, Gloria said, her voice theatrically innocent. How clumsy of me. We will get you a new one, eventually. Maya fished the phone out, but it was dead, screen black. She held it in her trembling hands and felt the last thread connecting her to the outside world snap. Then came the friends. Rachel Cole called the house phone 3 days later. Rachel was Maya's best friend from college, a woman built like a firecracker with the personality to match. Loud, loyal, and absolutely incapable of minding her own business, which was exactly the kind of friend everyone needed, but few people deserved. Gloria answered the phone. Maya was upstairs, scrubbing the bathroom floor on her hands and knees, and did not hear it ring. Oh, Rachel, honey. Maya is napping. She has been so exhausted with the pregnancy, I will have her call you right back. She did not tell Maya that Rachel had called. Rachel called again 2 days later, and again 3 days after that. Each time, Gloria answered with a different excuse, delivered with the warmth and concern of a devoted mother-in-law. On the fourth call, Gloria dropped the hammer. Rachel, sweetheart, I hate to tell you this, but Maya asked me to pass along a message. She needs some space right now. The pregnancy hormones have been very intense, and she is feeling overwhelmed. She loves you, but she just needs a little time to herself. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. She said that? Rachel asked, her voice small and hurt. I am so sorry, dear. You know how it is with first pregnancies. Everything is heightened. Give her a few weeks, and I am sure she will come around. Rachel backed off, not because she believed it completely, but because she loved Maya enough to respect what she thought was Maya's wish. That love, that respect, was exactly what Gloria was counting on. With the phone dead and Rachel neutralized, Gloria moved to the money. She convinced Daniel, over one of his nightly phone calls, that managing the household finances would be easier if she had access to their joint account. Your wife is pregnant, Daniel. She should not be worrying about bills and groceries. Let me handle it while you are working so hard. Daniel, exhausted from 12-hour workdays and conditioned since childhood to never question his mother, agreed. Within a week, Gloria had reduced Maya's access to their joint account to almost nothing. Maya had exactly $0 she could call her own. The doctor's appointment stopped next. Maya had a prenatal checkup scheduled for Tuesday of the 3rd week. She reminded Gloria that morning. My appointment is at 2 o'clock. Could you drive me? Gloria did not look up from her newspaper. Cancel it. Cancel it? But the doctor said, women have been having babies for thousands of years without running to the doctor every 5 minutes. You are not special. You are not sick. You are pregnant. It is the most natural thing in the world. But Gloria, the baby needs to be monitored. The doctor said my blood pressure was... I said cancel it. Gloria's voice dropped to that flat, dangerous tone that Maya had learned to fear more than shouting. Unless you want to walk there, it is 7 miles, in this heat, with that belly. Maya did not go to her appointment. She did not go to the next one either, or the one after that. The abuse escalated on a schedule that felt almost scientific. Week 1 was verbal, constant criticism, relentless comparison to other women Daniel could have married. Whispered reminders that Maya was worthless, stupid, fat, a burden. Week 2 was starvation. Gloria locked the pantry with a padlock and gave Maya just enough food for each meal, portioned out like prison rations. If Maya cooked dinner and Gloria decided it was not good enough, the food went in the trash, and Maya went to bed hungry. Week 3 was physical. It started with what Gloria called accidents. A bump on the stairs, a grab of the arm that left fingerprint-shaped bruises, hair pulling disguised as fixing Maya's ponytail, each one deniable, each one deliberate. Week 4 was public humiliation. At church on Sunday, Gloria sat in the front pew with Maya beside her and leaned over to the women in the row behind, speaking just loud enough for Maya and everyone else to hear. Please keep my family in your prayers. My daughter-in-law has been very difficult to live with. I think the pregnancy hormones are affecting her judgment. I am doing everything I can, but it is exhausting. The women clucked sympathetically. Poor Gloria. What a saint she was. What a burden she bore. Maya sat there, hands folded in her lap, tears burning behind her eyes, and said nothing. Because what could she say? Who would believe her over the church elder who ran the women's shelter fundraiser? When Daniel came home from his trips, the transformation was instantaneous. Gloria cooked elaborate meals, set the table with candles, fussed over Maya like a doting mother. She laughed at dinner, told stories from Daniel's childhood, and insisted Maya sit in the comfortable chair while she cleared the dishes. You two go relax, Gloria would say, shooing them toward the living room with a dishcloth. I have got everything under control. Daniel saw a devoted mother. Maya saw a performance worthy of an Academy Award. Late one night, after Daniel had fallen asleep, Maya lay in the dark and tried to find the courage to tell him. She practiced the words in her head. Daniel, your mother is hurting me. Daniel, I am scared. Daniel, please believe me. She reached over and shook his shoulder gently. Daniel, I need to talk to you. He groaned, half asleep. What is it? Your mother. She gets upset sometimes when you are gone. Daniel rolled over, rubbing his eyes. What do you mean? She says things. She calls me names. She does not let me eat sometimes, and she grabbed my arm last week. Look. Maya pushed up her sleeve, revealing the bracelet of purple bruises on her wrist. Daniel looked at the bruises. He was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed, and the sigh carried the weight of a man who was exhausted and stressed and had absolutely no room left in his life for one more problem. Maya, that bruise could be from anything. You bruise easily. You always have. My mother raised me alone after my father died. She has been through a lot. She is not a young woman. Maybe you are being too sensitive. Daniel, I am not. She is a church elder, Maya. She runs the women's shelter fundraiser. She has been nothing but kind to you since we moved in. Everyone in this community loves her. Do you hear what you are saying? Maya's heart cracked. Not broke, not yet. Cracked, like ice that was still holding, but would not hold much longer. I have enough stress at work, Daniel continued, his voice sharpening with frustration. I need peace when I come home. Can you please just try to get along with her? For me? For the baby? Maya never brought it up again. The next morning, Gloria served Daniel breakfast in bed with a warm smile. As she set down the tray, she looked at Maya, standing in the doorway, and mouthed two words, so only Maya could see. I told you. Nobody noticed. That was the cruelest part. An entire neighborhood, a whole church congregation, a community of people who prided themselves on looking out for one another, and nobody noticed that a pregnant woman was being starved and beaten behind the white picket fence at 47 Westbrook Lane. Nobody except Tanya Webb. Tanya lived next door. She was 45, worked from home as a freelance bookkeeper, and had the kind of quiet, observant nature that most people mistook for shyness. She was not shy. She was simply paying attention while everyone else was performing. Tanya had noticed things about Gloria long before Maya moved in. She noticed that Gloria's smile never reached her eyes. She noticed that Gloria's late husband, Richard, had grown thinner and quieter in the years before his death. She noticed that after Richard's so-called accidental fall down the stairs, Gloria had redecorated the entire house within a month, as if she was erasing him. Now she noticed Maya. At first it was subtle. Maya stopped coming outside to tend the flower boxes on the front porch, the ones she had planted with such enthusiasm in her first week. The flowers died. Gloria did not replace them. Then Maya stopped appearing in the yard at all. Tanya only saw her through the kitchen window, always cleaning, always alone, always moving with the careful, hunched posture of someone expecting to be hit. Maya was losing weight. Rapidly, her face grew gaunt, even as her belly grew larger. A pregnant woman should not look like she was disappearing. Then came the sounds. On days when Daniel's car was not in the driveway, Tanya heard screaming through the shared wall between their houses. Not Maya screaming, Gloria, raging, shrieking, a voice so full of venom that Tanya had to turn up her television to block it out. Sometimes, late at night, Tanya heard something worse. Crying. Quiet, muffled, desperate crying that went on for hours. Tanya was not a confrontational person. She did not want to cause problems. She told herself it was none of her business, that maybe she was reading too much into things, that maybe Maya and Gloria just had a difficult relationship. But one evening, taking out the trash, Tanya glanced into Gloria's garbage can. It was a habit, not snooping, just the idle curiosity of a woman who noticed everything. The trash was almost empty. For a household of 2 to 3 people, including a pregnant woman, there was almost no food waste. 1 yogurt container, 2 tea bags, nothing else. Someone in that house was not eating. That night, Tanya did something she had never done before. She opened a fresh notebook, wrote the date at the top of the first page, and began to record what she had seen. She did not know it yet, but that notebook would help save Maya's life. While Tanya documented from next door, Rachel Cole was unraveling 300 miles away. 3 weeks without hearing from Maya, 3 weeks of calls going to voicemail, 3 weeks of texts going unanswered. Rachel knew Maya. They had been roommates in college, had survived finals and breakups, and one spectacularly bad road trip to Florida that they still argued about. Maya was not the kind of person who ghosted her best friend. Something was wrong. Rachel called the Hamso's phone one more time. Gloria answered, sweet as sugar. Gloria, it has been 3 weeks. I am worried. Can I please just talk to her for 2 minutes? Rachel, honey, I told you. She needs space. The pregnancy has been very hard on her emotionally. The doctor thinks she might be developing some anxiety issues. What doctor? Can you give me the doctor's name? A pause. The slightest hesitation, barely a heartbeat, but Rachel caught it. I would not feel comfortable sharing that information. It is Maya's private medical business. Rachel hung up the phone and sat in her car for 10 minutes, engine running, thinking. Then she did what Rachel always did when something did not add up. She drove. 3 hours later, she pulled up to 47 Westbrook Lane and marched to the front door with the determination of a woman who had once tracked down her stolen bicycle through 4 neighborhoods and 2 pawn shops. Gloria opened the door with her signature smile. Rachel, what a wonderful surprise. Come in, come in. Rachel walked into the living room and stopped dead. Maya sat on the couch, and Rachel barely recognized her. The vibrant, laughing woman she had known for 10 years had been replaced by a ghost. Thin arms, sunken cheeks, dark circles under eyes that looked too large for her face. She looked like she had aged 15 years and 2 months. Maya. Rachel could not hide the shock in her voice. Girl, what happened to you? She has been under the weather, Gloria said quickly, positioning herself between them like a bodyguard. Pregnancy takes a toll. You know how it is. Can I talk to my friend alone for a minute? Of course, of course. Maya, Why do you not show Rachel where the bathroom is? I will make some tea. In the bathroom, with the door closed and the fan running, Rachel grabbed Maya's shoulders. What the hell's going on? You look terrible. You are skin and bones. Maya, talk to me. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Her mouth opened. She wanted to speak so badly that the words were physically pushing it against her teeth, fighting to get out. But then Gloria's voice floated through the door, light and casual and perfectly timed. Everything okay in there? Maya, honey, I need your help with the tea. The words died. Maya's face went blank, like someone had flipped a switch. I am fine, Rachel. Just tired. Pregnancy, you know. Rachel did not believe her, not for 1 second, but she could not force Maya to talk, not with Gloria 10 feet away, listening. She drove home that night with her hands gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white, and a feeling in her gut that something was deeply, terribly wrong. She called Daniel the next morning. Daniel, I just visited Maya. She looks sick. Something is wrong in that house. I do not know what your mama is doing, but your wife is not okay. Daniel's response was a wall. Not you two. Rachel, Maya has been emotional lately. The pregnancy is hard. My mom is taking great care of her. She cooks for her, drives her to appointments, makes sure she rests. Taking care of her? Daniel, your wife looks like she has not eaten a real meal in a month. Open your eyes. I am not doing this. Rachel, I love you like a sister, but you need to stay out of my marriage. He hung up, and then he called Gloria and told her that Rachel had been calling with concerns. That was the worst thing he could have done. That night, after Daniel's phone call, Gloria descended to the basement where Maya had been scrubbing the floor. She grabbed Maya by the hair and dragged her backward. Maya screamed, her hands clawing at Gloria's grip, her pregnant belly slamming against the ground. Your little friend thinks she can save you? Gloria hissed, her face inches from Maya's. Nobody can save you. Nobody is coming, and now you have made me very, very angry. She threw Maya into the basement storage closet, a space barely large enough for a person to stand. Dark, cold, no light switch. You can come out when you learn that the only person you should be talking to in this house is me. The door slammed. The lock clicked. Maya pressed her hands against her belly in the darkness and whispered to her baby, I am sorry. I thought someone was coming. I thought Rachel would save us. But she is gone. Everyone is gone. And then Gloria made one more phone call. Rachel, it is Gloria. I hate to do this, but I need to tell you something in confidence. Her voice was trembling, a masterful performance of a worried mother-in-law. Maya has been struggling with her mental health. She has been saying terrible things, accusing me of hurting her, making wild claims. We are trying to get her help, but she refuses. I think the pregnancy has triggered something. On the other end of the line, Rachel went quiet. Please, just give her space. The stress of visitors is making it worse. I am doing everything I can. Rachel hung up, confused and shaken. Could Gloria be right? Could Maya really be having a breakdown? She had seemed so unlike herself, so thin and scared. Was that mental illness, or something else? Rachel sat with that question for days, paralyzed by doubt. And every day she hesitated was another day Maya spent trapped. Daniel came home on a Friday evening, 3 months into the nightmare. He was exhausted from a 60-hour work week, carrying his briefcase and a bouquet of flowers he had picked up at the gas station, a peace offering for Maya, though he was not entirely sure what he was making peace for. He opened the front door and called out, I am home! Gloria appeared from the kitchen, all smiles, wiping her hands on a dishcloth. The smell of roast chicken filled the house. The table was set with candles. Welcome home, baby, she said, hugging him. Maya is upstairs resting. She had a hard day. Daniel set down the flowers and went upstairs. He found Maya sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. She did not look up when he entered. "Hey, I brought you flowers." Maya turned her head slowly. Her eyes were hollow. She looked at the flowers like she did not know what they were. "Thank you," she said, and her voice was so small and flat that it made the hairs on Daniel's neck stand up. Something was wrong. He had been telling himself for weeks that everything was fine, that Maya was just emotional, that his mother was a good woman. But standing in that doorway, looking at his wife's empty eyes, he could not make himself believe it anymore. At dinner, he watched, really watched, the way Maya served Gloria's plate first, and then waited until Gloria began eating before serving herself. The way she flinched, barely perceptibly, when Gloria reached across the table for the salt. The way she sat rigid in her chair, barely eating, her eyes tracking Gloria's every movement like a rabbit watching a hawk. "Delicious as always," Daniel said to his mother. "Thank you, sweetheart. Maya helped. Did you not, dear?" "Yes," Maya said. One word. No eye contact. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He lay in bed next to Maya, who had fallen asleep instantly from sheer exhaustion, and replayed every conversation, every phone call, every dismissal. Rachel's voice echoed in his head. "Your wife looks like she has not eaten a real meal in a month. Open your eyes." He opened them. The next morning, he told Gloria he had to go into the office early. Instead, he drove to an electronics store and bought a small wireless camera, the kind you could disguise as a charger and sync to your phone. He planted it in the kitchen, angled to capture most of the room, and drove to work with his heart hammering. He did not have to wait long. At 11:32 in the morning, Daniel sat in his car in the office parking lot and watched the live stream on his phone. What he saw destroyed him. Gloria stood over Maya, who was on her knees cleaning the kitchen floor. Gloria held a plate of food, the leftovers from breakfast. She examined it, then dumped the entire plate into the trash can. "You did not earn dinner yesterday, and you have not earned breakfast today. Please," Maya whispered. "The baby needs food." "I have not eaten since, Gloria grabbed a handful of Maya's hair and yanked her head back. Maya gasped in pain, her hands instinctively going to her belly. "The baby needs a mother who knows her place. You want to eat? Then clean this floor until I can see my reflection in it. And then maybe, if I am feeling generous, I will give you a piece of bread." She released Maya's hair and walked away, picking up her phone. She scrolled through Facebook, smiling, and typed a new post while Maya sobbed on the floor behind her. Daniel watched until his phone screen blurred because he could not see through his tears. Then he wiped his face, started the car, and drove home. He burst through the front door like a man on fire. Gloria was in the living room reading a magazine. Maya was in the kitchen, still on her knees. "Mama, do not touch her." Gloria looked up, her reading glasses perched on her nose, the picture of elderly innocence. "Touch who?" "Daniel, what are you talking about?" "I saw it. I saw what you did this morning. I have a camera in the kitchen." The words hung in the air like smoke. Maya appeared in the doorway behind Daniel, her eyes wide, her hand over her mouth. For one brilliant, shining moment, hope blazed across her face like sunrise. He knew, he finally knew, and he was going to save her. Gloria set down her magazine slowly. She removed her glasses, folded them carefully, and placed them on the side table. Then she looked at her son, and her expression was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. It was calm, calculating, completely unafraid. "So you have been spying on me," she said quietly. "In my own home. This is not your home. It is ours. And what I saw on that camera, what you saw was a stressed-out old woman trying to manage a household while her son works all day and his wife refuses to help. I raised my voice. I admit that. I am not perfect. But a camera, Daniel? You put a camera in my kitchen? I saw you pull her hair. I saw you take her food. You saw what you wanted to see, a 10-second clip with no context. And you are going to take that over the word of your own mother, the woman who raised you, who sacrificed everything for you, who held you when your father died? Daniel faltered. He hated himself for it, but he faltered. A lifetime of conditioning does not evaporate in one afternoon. Gloria saw the hesitation and struck. "Since we are sharing secrets," she said, reaching for her phone with the casual confidence of a card player, laying down a royal flush, "perhaps Maya should see what her husband has been doing at work." She turned the phone toward Daniel. On the screen were text messages, screenshots of a conversation between Daniel and his co-worker Jessica, except the messages had been altered. What were originally professional discussions about project deadlines now included flirtatious exchanges, suggestive comments, a "miss you" text with a heart emoji that Daniel had never sent. "Where did you get those?" Daniel breathed. "And these." Gloria swiped to a series of photos. Daniel and Jessica at what appeared to be a candlelit dinner, leaning close, laughing. In reality, it had been a team dinner with 8 people, but Gloria had cropped everyone else out. "Here's what is going to happen, Daniel." Gloria's voice was ice. "You are going to delete that camera footage. You are going to apologize to me, and you are going to remember that I am the only person in this house who has always been on your side." "Those are fake. I never." "Are they? Because I wonder what Maya would think. In her fragile condition, 8 months pregnant, learning that her husband has been having an affair. What do you think that stress would do to the baby, Daniel?" The room went silent. Maya stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes darting between husband and mother-in-law, hope flickering and dying on her face like a candle in a windstorm. Daniel deleted the footage. He deleted the footage, apologized to his mother, and went to bed without looking Maya in the eye. That night, after the house went dark, Gloria unlocked the kitchen door, where Maya sat at the table, unable to sleep, still waiting, still hoping. Gloria stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway light. She smiled the way a cat smiles at a mouse that has stopped running. "He is not coming, sweetheart. He never was." She turned and walked up the stairs. Her footsteps were slow, deliberate, triumphant. Maya sat alone in the dark kitchen and felt the last light inside her go out. In the weeks that followed, Gloria escalated beyond anything Maya could have imagined. The restraint, the calculation, the careful cruelty that could be denied or explained away, all of it dropped. Gloria no longer cared about appearances inside the house. She had won. She knew it, and she wanted Maya to know it too. The basement became Maya's regular punishment cell. Cold concrete, no light, no blankets, sometimes for hours, sometimes for an entire day. Gloria would lock the door and turn up the television upstairs, gospel music, and game shows playing at full volume, loud enough to drown out any sound Maya might make. Maya was now 8.5 months pregnant. She had not seen a doctor in 4 months. She had not spoken to anyone outside the house in 3 months. She ate once a day, whatever scraps Gloria permitted, usually plain rice or stale bread. She had lost so much weight that the only part of her that seemed to be growing was her belly. A cruel contrast that made her look like she was being consumed by her own pregnancy. Daniel came and went like a ghost. He worked late, left early, avoided eye contact with Maya, and treated Gloria with a wary, guilty politeness that made Maya's stomach turn. He knew. He had seen the footage with his own eyes, and he had chosen his mother anyway. Or had he? Maya could not be sure. Daniel looked haunted, He moved through the house like a man sleepwalking through a nightmare he could not wake up from. Sometimes at night, Maya heard him pacing in the hallway, outside their bedroom, back and forth, as if he was trying to work up the courage to do something. He never did. One morning, Gloria woke Maya at 4 o'clock by pouring a glass of cold water on her face. "Get up. The kitchen floor is filthy." Maya pulled herself off the mattress that Gloria had moved to a corner of the basement, a thin, stained thing that smelled like mildew. Her body ached everywhere. Her back was in constant pain. The baby was so heavy now that standing up felt like carrying a boulder strapped to her front. She climbed the stairs slowly, gripping the railing, breathing hard. Gloria watched from the top, arms crossed, expression bored. "Hurry up! I do not have all day." In the kitchen, Maya picked up the mop and began to clean. The floor was not dirty. It never was. Gloria made her clean it anyway, sometimes 3 times a day, just to remind her who was in control. As she mopped, her eyes drifted to the window. The sun was just coming up, casting long shadows across the backyard. And in those shadows, near the fence that separated Gloria's property from Tanya Webb's, Maya thought she saw something move. A figure, standing still, watching. Maya blinked, and it was gone. She had been seeing things for weeks now. The hunger, the exhaustion, the constant stress, they were breaking down her mind as surely as they were breaking down her body. But somewhere in the fog, a small, stubborn spark refused to go out. Her father's voice, a memory so old it felt like it belonged to another lifetime. "Never give up, Maya. Never surrender. Even when the battle seems lost, you keep fighting." Lieutenant Joseph Adams, United States Army. Her father had survived 2 tours overseas, had earned medals Bayard kept in a box under her bed, had been the strongest, bravest person she had ever known. He had not survived the car accident 5 years ago, and her mother, shattered by grief, had followed him 6 months later. Maya was alone, had been alone, would die alone in this house if she did not do something. But what? She had no phone, no money, no allies, no way out. Her eyes fell on the stove. Something about its position bothered her. It was pulled slightly away from the wall, just an inch, as if someone had moved it recently and not pushed it all the way back. Maya glanced toward the hallway. Gloria's television was on upstairs. The sound of a morning talk show drifted down the stairs. Moving carefully, silently, Maya reached behind the stove. Her fingers touched something cold and rectangular. She pulled it out slowly. A phone, old, scratched, with a cracked screen. But when she pressed the power button, it turned on. Battery at 12%. No password. Maya's hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. This was not her phone. Gloria had destroyed her phone months ago. This must have belonged to someone else, another person who had lived in this house, maybe another victim of Gloria's cruelty who had hidden it here in a moment of desperation. It did not matter where it came from. What mattered was that it was here, in her hand, glowing faintly in the dim kitchen, offering something Maya had not felt in months. Hope. She had to think fast. Who could she call? She had no numbers memorized. Rachel's number was saved in the phone Gloria had destroyed. 911 was an option, but the police had already come once and left without helping. Gloria had outperformed them. Then Maya remembered something. Not a phone number, but a name, a phrase her father used to say. "The military takes care of its own, even their families." There was an organization. She had seen the pamphlets at her father's funeral. representatives from the military community offering support to the families of fallen service members. There was a hotline, a crisis number for military families in distress. Maya opened the phone's browser with trembling fingers. The internet was slow, agonizingly slow, each page loading like it was being transmitted through molasses. She typed keywords she could remember. Military family emergency, hotline support veterans. A number appeared. She dialed it. The phone rang twice. 3 times, 4. Military family crisis support line. This is Sergeant Davis. How can I help you? Maya's voice came out in a whisper, broken and desperate. My name is Maya Adams Williams. My father was Lieutenant Joseph Adams. He served in the Army. He died 5 years ago. I am pregnant. I am being held and abused by my mother-in-law. I need help. Please, I need help. Ma'am, slow down. Can you give me your address? 47 Westbrook Lane. Please hurry. She is upstairs. If she finds me with this phone... Footsteps above. The television went quiet. Ma'am? Are you still there? Maya ended the call, deleted it from the log, turned off the phone, and shoved it back behind the stove. She grabbed the mop and began cleaning with frantic, mechanical strokes, her heart pounding so loud she was certain it could be heard throughout the entire house. Gloria appeared in the kitchen doorway. Her eyes swept the room like searchlights. Who were you talking to? No one. I was singing. To the baby. Gloria stared at her for a long, terrible moment. Then she turned and went back upstairs. Maya mopped the floor and prayed. She prayed harder than she had ever prayed in her life. 3 days passed. No sirens, no soldiers, no rescue. Maya did not know that the crisis line had logged her call, flagged it as high priority, and forwarded it to local authorities. She did not know that Detective Frank Morgan, a grizzled 55-year-old domestic violence specialist who had spent 25 years pulling women out of nightmares, had been assigned to her case. She knew nothing. She only knew that every hour that passed without help was another hour closer to the end. On the 4th day, Gloria locked her in the basement again. This time, it was for telling the baby a story out loud while cleaning. You think this is playtime, Gloria hissed. You think you are on vacation? Get downstairs. You can come out when I say you can come out. The basement was worse in winter. The concrete floor sucked the heat out of Maya's body. She curled up on the thin mattress, wrapped her arms around her belly, and shivered. The baby had been less active lately. Where there used to be enthusiastic kicks and rolls, now there were weak flutters that came less and less frequently. Maya knew this was bad. She knew, somewhere in the part of her brain that still functioned clearly, that her baby was in danger. Hours passed. 6, 8, 10. The basement was completely dark. No windows, no light switch that worked, nothing but blackness and cold and the distant sound of Gloria's television. Then she heard something, knocking, not on the basement door, on the front door of the house. Loud, authoritative knocking. Mrs. Williams, this is the police. We would like to speak with you. Maya's heart exploded. She scrambled to her feet, opened her mouth to scream, but Gloria's voice cut through the house like a blade. One moment, officers. Let me put on my robe. Maya heard Gloria's footsteps cross the ceiling above her, moving toward the basement stairs. The door opened. Gloria's silhouette appeared at the top of the steps. The police are here, Gloria whispered. Her voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. Because of your little phone stunt, I am guessing. Maya's blood froze. Here is what is going to happen. You are going to come upstairs. You are going to look presentable, and you are going to tell those officers that you are fine. Because if you do not, I have a letter from Dr. Harold Webb, a licensed psychiatrist and a dear friend from church, stating that you suffer from pregnancy-related psychotic disorder, delusions, paranoia, hallucinations. That is not true. Of course it is not true, but it is on paper with a doctor's signature. And if those officers hear you ranting about being tortured by a 62-year-old church elder in a house that looks like a magazine cover, who do you think they will believe? The hysterical, pregnant woman with a documented mental health history, or me? Gloria paused, letting the words sink in like poison. And here's the part you should really pay attention to, Maya. If they believe the diagnosis, they will flag you as a danger to your unborn child. The state can take your baby the moment it is born. You will never hold your daughter. Is that what you want? Maya could not breathe. The walls of the basement pressed in around her. Get dressed. You have 2 minutes. Maya climbed the stairs on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. In the bathroom, she splashed water on her face, tried to tame her hair, tried to make herself look like something other than what she was, a starving, terrified prisoner. She walked into the living room. 2 police officers stood near the door, a man and a woman. Gloria stood beside them, in her bathrobe, clutching her Bible, the picture of a concerned grandmother rudely awakened from sleep. "Mrs. Adams Williams?" the female officer asked. "We received a report about a possible domestic disturbance at this address." "Are you okay?" Maya looked at the officers. She looked at Gloria. Gloria's hand rested casually on her Bible, but her eyes burned with a message clear as glass. Say the wrong thing, and you lose everything. "I am fine," Maya heard herself say. "Just tired. The pregnancy has been hard." The officer studied her face. "Ma'am, you look underweight. Have you been seeing a doctor?" "She has an appointment next week," Gloria jumped in, smoothly. "We have been managing her care very carefully. She is a high-risk pregnancy, which has caused quite a bit of stress and confusion." The officers exchanged a glance. Maya could see them weighing what they saw. A clean house, a sweet grandmother, a pregnant woman who seemed tired but was not screaming for help, against what they had been told, a vague report from a crisis hotline about possible abuse. "Ma'am, if you need help, we are here," the male officer said. "You can tell us anything." Maya opened her mouth. This was it. This was her moment. She could tell them everything. She could show them the basement. She could beg them to take her away from here. But Gloria's words echoed in her skull. "They will take your baby. You will never hold your daughter." "I am fine," Maya whispered. "Thank you." The officers left their card on the hall table and walked out the front door. Maya stood in the living room and felt something inside her die. Not the baby, not yet. But something vital, something that had been keeping her going through all the darkness, some last reserve of belief that the system would save her, that authority figures would see the truth, that justice existed. That belief died in the living room of 47 Westbrook Lane. While Gloria Williams smiled and closed the front door. "Well," Gloria said pleasantly, locking the deadbolt, "that was exciting. Now I believe the kitchen floor needs attention." Dim. Outside, in a car parked across the street, Rachel Cole sat with her phone in her hand, having watched the officers come and go. She had been the one who called the crisis line anonymously after doing her own research. She had driven 3 hours to be here, to make sure someone came, and they had come, and they had left, and nothing had changed. Rachel slammed her hands on the steering wheel and screamed. But Rachel Cole was not a woman who gave up. She had tracked down a stolen bicycle through 4 neighborhoods and 2 pawn shops. She had argued her way into graduate school after being rejected twice. She had once driven through a hurricane to be at Maya's side when her mother died. She was not done, not even close. The next 72 hours broke Maya completely. Not one event, not one act of cruelty, but 3. coming one after another like waves designed to hold her under until she stopped fighting for air. The first catastrophe began the morning after the failed police visit. Maya woke on the basement floor to the worst pain she had ever felt. A contraction, deep and powerful, clenching her entire abdomen like a fist. She was 8.5 months pregnant. The baby was not due for 6 more weeks. No, she gasped, pressing her hands against her belly. No, not yet. It is too early. Another contraction hit, stronger than the first. Maya screamed. The sound echoed off the concrete walls and bounced back at her, filling the darkness with her own anguish. The basement door opened. Gloria stood at the top of the stairs, silhouetted by the hallway light. What now? The baby, Maya panted. Something is wrong. I need a hospital, please. Gloria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You are being dramatic. Women have contractions all the time. It is called practice. This is not practice. Please, I am bleeding. That got Gloria's attention. Not out of concern for Maya, but out of self-preservation. A pregnant woman dying in her basement would be difficult to explain, even for her. Fine, I will call an ambulance. But remember what I told you. One wrong word and you lose the baby. The ambulance came. Maya was loaded onto a stretcher, her face gray, her blood pressure dangerously low. At the hospital, doctors swarmed around her, fetal heart rate dropping. Mother severely dehydrated, malnutrition, bruising on her arms and back in various stages of healing. A nurse named Diane, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who had seen every kind of suffering that humans could inflict on each other, pulled back Maya's gown to attach the fetal monitor and stopped. Bruises everywhere. Not the kind you get from bumping into furniture, the kind you get from being grabbed, shoved, struck, layered over each other, purple and green and yellow. A timeline of abuse written on Maya's skin. Diane leaned close while Gloria was in the hallway talking to a doctor. Honey, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Is someone hurting you? Maya looked at the door. Gloria's voice carried from the hallway, sweet and worried, playing the devoted mother-in-law for the medical staff. Maya looked back at Diane, and the dam broke. She is going to kill me. After the baby comes, she is going to kill me. Please, please help me. Diane's face hardened into stone. She picked up the hospital phone and made 2 calls, one to security, one to Detective Frank Morgan. Morgan arrived within the hour. He was a big man with a weathered face and tired eyes that had seen too many women in too many hospital beds with too many bruises. He sat beside Maya's bed and listened while she told him everything. Every slap, every locked door, every skipped meal, every threat. When she finished, Morgan said, I believe you. 3 words. 3 simple words that Maya had not heard in months. She broke down crying so hard the nurses rushed in to check on the baby. Morgan walked to the hallway where Gloria was waiting. He studied her for a moment. This well-dressed, Bible-carrying, silver-haired woman who looked like everybody's favorite grandmother. He had seen her type before. The kind ones were always the most dangerous. Mrs. Williams, I need to ask you some questions about your daughter-in-law's condition. Gloria was magnificent. She wept. She expressed shock and concern. She suggested that Maya's injuries might be self-inflicted, a symptom of the psychological issues she had been struggling with, and then she produced her weapon. A letter, on official letterhead, from Dr. Harold Webb, licensed psychiatrist, diagnosing Maya Adams Williams with pregnancy-related psychotic disorder, recommending close monitoring and possible involuntary psychiatric evaluation. Morgan read the letter. His expression did not change, but his jaw tightened by a fraction of an inch. This is quite a diagnosis, he said. I did not want it to come to this, Gloria sniffled. I have been trying to protect her, to protect the baby. She needs help, detective. Professional help. Then came the second catastrophe. Daniel arrived at the hospital. Gloria met him in the parking lot before he could get to Maya's room. She told him what was happening, her version of what was happening, and she delivered her final, devastating request. They are going to ask you, Daniel, the detective. He is going to ask you about Maya's behavior, and you need to tell him the truth. She has been making wild accusations. She has been unstable. The doctor's letter confirms it. Mom, I do not know if... Daniel. Gloria gripped his arm with a strength that belied her age. If you do not back me up, they will investigate me. They will find the camera footage. And if they start digging, they will dig into everything. Everything, Daniel. Do you understand me? The threat was clear. Gloria had secrets that could destroy them all. Daniel walked into Maya's hospital room like a man walking to his own execution. Detective Morgan was there. Gloria was there. Maya was in bed, hooked up to monitors, her eyes full of hope when she saw her husband. Daniel, she breathed, tell him what she did to me. Morgan looked at Daniel. Mr. Williams, your wife has made some serious allegations. Can you describe your mother's behavior toward Maya? The room held its breath. Daniel looked at Maya. He looked at his mother. He looked at the detective. And the words that came out of his mouth sent Maya into a spiral of despair, so deep she could feel the earth closing over her head. She has been saying things about my mom, things that do not make sense. I did not want to believe it, but maybe she does need help. Maya stared at her husband, the man she had loved, the man she had married, the man she had believed would protect her. Daniel, no. You saw the camera. You know what she did. Maya, please, you need to rest. You saw it? Gloria placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. This is what I was telling you about, sweetheart. The paranoia, the aggression. The third catastrophe struck before Maya could argue further. Based on Daniel's statement and the psychiatric evaluation letter, the hospital initiated a 72-hour psychiatric hold evaluation. If Maya was deemed a risk to herself or the baby, she could be held involuntarily. And once the baby was born, Gloria could petition for emergency custody. Maya lay in her hospital bed, strapped to monitors she could not remove, staring at the ceiling, and finally understood Gloria's endgame. Gloria did not want Maya. She had never wanted Maya. She wanted the baby. A grandchild she could control, mold, and raise in her own image, the way she had raised Daniel. Maya was just the vessel. Once the baby was delivered, Maya was disposable. The room was quiet now. Daniel had left, unable to look at her. Gloria had gone home to rest. The nurses checked on her every hour, more to evaluate her mental state than to monitor the baby. Maya placed both hands on her belly. The baby moved weakly. Grace, Maya whispered. I am going to call you Grace, because that is what I need right now. I do not have a phone. I do not have a friend. I do not have a husband who believes me. All I have is you, and I swear, on my father's grave, she will not take you from me. I do not know how yet, but I swear it. 280 miles away, Rachel Cole sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, surrounded by printouts, screenshots, and sticky notes, looking like a conspiracy theorist in a crime drama. She had not slept in 2 days. After watching the police come and go from Gloria's house without result, something had shifted inside her. The guilt of backing off, of believing Gloria's story about Maya needing space, of not acting sooner, it had transformed into a white-hot determination that bordered on obsession. Rachel had spent 48 hours doing what Rachel did best, refusing to accept no for an answer. She started with Maya's old college friends, She called every one of them. 6 women, all with the same story. Gloria had reached out individually, telling each one that Maya needed space, that the pregnancy was difficult, that Maya had asked not to be contacted. None of them had heard directly from Maya. None had questioned Gloria's sweet, concerned voice, pattern established. Gloria had systematically cut Maya off from every person who cared about her. Next, Rachel dove into Gloria's social media. The Facebook profile was a masterpiece of performance. Hundreds of posts about faith, family, gratitude, and blessings. Photos with church friends. Testimonials from women in the community about what a wonderful person Gloria was. Rachel screenshotted everything, documenting the false image Gloria had constructed. Then Rachel found something that made her blood run cold. A newspaper article from 15 years ago. Local man Richard Williams found dead at home. Police ruled accidental fall downstairs. Survived by wife Gloria Williams and son Daniel Williams, age 17. The article was 3 paragraphs long, matter of fact. No suspicion of foul play mentioned. But Rachel noticed something in the margins of the story. The original police report, which she found through a public records request, noted that the responding officers had observed bruising on Richard's arms that appeared older than the fatal injuries. A question was raised and then dropped. Gloria's first husband had bruises before he fell down the stairs. Rachel sat with that information for a long time. Then she did the bravest and most reckless thing she had ever done. She drove to Westbrook Lane, not to Gloria's house, to the house next door. Tanya Webb opened the door on the 3rd knock, looking tired and anxious. "Can I help you?" "My name is Rachel Cole. My best friend is Maya Williams. She lives next door, and I think she is in terrible danger." Tanya's face changed. Something shifted behind her eyes, a mixture of relief and fear and recognition. "Come inside," she said. "I have something to show you." She showed Rachel the notebook. 43 dated entries over 4 months. Screaming heard through the walls on days Daniel's car was absent. Observations of Maya's deteriorating physical condition, notes about the garbage, the lack of food waste, the evidence of starvation, times and dates of every incident, recorded in Tanya's careful, precise handwriting. "I knew something was wrong," Tanya said, her hands trembling. "I knew it for months, but I did not know what to do. She is such a respected woman in this community. Who would believe me?" "I would," Rachel said, "and so will a detective I know." Rachel called Detective Morgan that afternoon. She laid out everything: the notebook, the college friends, the social media documentation, the old newspaper article about Richard Williams. Morgan listened without interrupting. When Rachel finished, he was quiet for 15 seconds. "Miss Cole, I want you to know that I believed your friend from the moment I spoke to her. The psychiatric letter from Dr. Webb never sat right with me. I have been doing my own digging." "What did you find?" "Dr. Harold Webb has not examined Maya Adams Williams in person. Not once. He wrote that letter as a personal favor to Gloria Williams, a fellow church member. That is medical fraud. That is a crime. Oh my God. I have also subpoenaed Gloria Williams' financial records. She has been siphoning money from her son's accounts for years, funneling it into a private account that neither Daniel nor Maya knew about. There is close to $200,000 in it." Rachel's hands were shaking. "Can you arrest her?" "Not yet. The psychiatric hold on Maya complicates things, but I am building a case. I need more. I need Daniel Williams to cooperate." "Daniel is useless. He sided with his mother. People can change, Miss Cole, especially when they see the truth clearly enough." Morgan was right about that, because at that very moment, Daniel Williams was sitting alone in his car in the hospital parking lot, having just lied to a detective to protect a mother he was beginning to realize might be a monster. He had not gone home after leaving the hospital. He could not face Gloria. He could not face the house. He sat in the driver's seat with the engine off, replaying the look on Maya's face when he betrayed her. The look was not anger. It was not even surprise. It was the resigned devastation of someone whose last hope has just been extinguished. Daniel picked up his phone and opened his cloud storage app. The nanny cam footage. He had told Gloria he'd deleted it. He had deleted it from his phone. But weeks ago, before Gloria's confrontation, the camera had automatically backed up 48 hours of footage to the cloud. He pressed play. He watched his mother slap his wife across the face. He watched his mother drag his wife by the hair. He watched his mother dump food in the trash while his pregnant wife begged for a meal. He watched his mother grab his wife by the throat and slam her against the wall. Then he found the footage from the day after the police visit. Footage he had never seen before. Gloria on her phone, pacing the kitchen, speaking to someone in a tone Daniel had never heard her use. She will break soon, and once the baby is here, we file for custody. I have the doctor. I have the paperwork. That girl will be out on the street by spring. A pause while the person on the other end spoke. Accidents happen. Depressed women do desperate things. No one will question it. Daniel stopped the video. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. His mother was not just abusing Maya. She was planning to take the baby, and then she was planning to make Maya disappear. He opened his email and found something else in his inbox that he had been ignoring for weeks. A notification from their insurance provider about a new policy. He clicked it open. A life insurance policy on Maya Adams Williams, $500,000. Beneficiary, Gloria Williams. Gloria had taken out a life insurance policy on Maya 3 months ago. Without Maya's knowledge, without Daniel's knowledge, Daniel sat in his car and screamed. He screamed until his throat was raw and his chest ached and his eyes burned. Then he picked up his phone and called Detective Morgan. Detective, this is Daniel Williams, Maya's husband. I need to talk to you. I have footage. I have a recording. I have a life insurance policy. And I am ready to tell you everything. Detective Morgan moved fast. Within 24 hours, he had assembled a team, secured a warrant for Gloria's financial records, and coordinated with the hospital to quietly lift the psychiatric hold on Maya. Dr. Harold Webb, confronted with the evidence of his fraudulent diagnosis, folded immediately and agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. But Morgan wanted more than financial fraud charges. He wanted Gloria Williams behind bars for decades. And for that, he needed her own words. He needed a confession. I want you to wear a wire, Morgan told Daniel in his office at the police station. Daniel sat across from him, looking like he had not slept in days, which he had not. Go to your mother. Tell her you believe her. Tell her Maya is crazy, and get her talking about her plans. Daniel's face was gray. You want me to betray my mother. Your mother is planning to murder your wife and steal your child. I want you to save them. Daniel closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had changed. The confusion, the guilt, the paralysis of a man caught between the woman who raised him and the woman he loved, all of it burned away, replaced by a cold, clear resolve. Tell me exactly what to do. The next evening, Daniel drove to 47 Westbrook Lane. He had a wireless microphone taped to his chest under his shirt. Connected to a receiver in an unmarked van parked 2 blocks away, where Morgan and 2 audio technicians monitored every word. Gloria was in the kitchen when he arrived. She was cooking dinner, humming a hymn, looking for all the world like the devoted mother she presented to the public. She smiled when Daniel walked in. There's my boy. Are you hungry? Mom, we need to talk. He sat down at the kitchen table. Gloria set down her spatula and sat across from him, her expression shifting to one of gentle concern. "What is wrong, sweetheart?" "I went to see Maya at the hospital. She is getting worse. She was ranting about you, making wild accusations. The doctors think she might need to be committed." Gloria's eyebrows rose. "Committed? For how long?" "Could be weeks, months. They said if she is a danger to the baby, the baby." Gloria's voice took on a new quality, a hungry, possessive tone that made Daniel's skin crawl. "What happens to the baby if she is committed?" "The court would appoint a guardian. That is what the social worker told me. A guardian, like a family member, like a grandmother, for instance." "That is what I was thinking." Gloria leaned forward, and the mask dropped completely. Daniel had seen it fall before, in brief moments, but never like this, never this fully. Her eyes were bright, feverish, calculating. "I have been preparing for this, Daniel, for months. Dr. Webb's letter establishes a pattern of mental instability. I have documented her behavior, her refusal to eat, her neglect of the household. The police have already visited once and seen nothing wrong. When the time comes, the court will see a loving grandmother who has been doing everything she can, and a mentally ill mother who cannot be trusted with an infant." "But what about after? What about when she gets out of the hospital and wants the baby back?" Gloria smiled. It was the coldest, most calculated smile Daniel had ever seen on a human face. "Depressed women do desperate things, Daniel. After everything she has been through, the isolation, the mental breakdown, losing custody of her child, who would be surprised if she did something drastic? People would say it was inevitable. Tragic, but inevitable." The van 2 blocks away went silent. Morgan leaned forward, his face hard. "Get her to say it plainly," he whispered into the earpiece. Daniel swallowed. "Mom, what exactly are you saying?" "I am saying that problems have a way of resolving themselves when the right conditions are created. I am saying that Maya Adams Williams is a temporary inconvenience, and I am saying that when she is gone, you and I will raise that baby the way a child should be raised. In this house, under my guidance, like you raised me." Gloria reached across the table and took Daniel's hand, "Exactly like I raised you." Daniel looked at his mother's hand on his, the same hand that had slapped Maya across the face, the same hand that had dragged her by the hair, the same hand that had locked her in a cold, dark basement while she was pregnant and starving. "Just like you raised Dad?" Daniel said quietly. The room went still. "What did you say?" Gloria whispered. "Dad. Just like you raised him, except you did not raise him, did you? You controlled him. You broke him. And when he tried to leave you, when he said he was taking me and going to his sister's house in Michigan, he fell down the stairs. He was drunk. Dad did not drink. Not ever. I was 10 years old, Mom. But I remember. I remember the fighting. I remember the bruises on his arms. I remember the night he told me to pack a bag because we were leaving, and I remember waking up to sirens." Gloria's face went through a transformation that the audio technicians in the van later described as the most disturbing thing they had ever heard translated through sound alone. Her voice shifted from motherly warmth to something ancient and reptilian. "You ungrateful little woman, bow. It is over, Mom. Nothing is over. I made you. Everything you are, everything you have, I built. And you dare... I have footage from the kitchen camera. I backed it up before you made me delete it. Every slap, every time you starved her, every threat. And I have this conversation. Right now. Recorded." Gloria's face drained of color. "You are wearing a wire." "I am wearing a wire." For 5 seconds, Gloria Williams was completely silent. Then she lunged across the table, not at Daniel, but toward the stove. Her hand closed around a knife from the butcher block. She spun with a speed that defied her age, blade extended, eyes wild. You traitorous, ungrateful, worthless. The kitchen door burst open. Detective Morgan came through first, weapon drawn, followed by 4 officers. The room was filled with shouts and commands and the sound of boots on hardwood. Drop the knife! Drop it now! Gloria did not drop it. She held it up, pointed at Daniel, her face twisted into something that no longer resembled a human expression. I gave you everything. I sacrificed my life for you. You sacrificed Dad? You almost sacrificed Maya. It is over, Mom. Mrs. Williams, this is your last warning. Drop the weapon. Gloria looked at her son, at the police, at the knife in her hand, and for one terrible moment, it seemed like she might use it. Not on Daniel. On herself. The final manipulation. The ultimate guilt. But Detective Morgan had seen that move before. He nodded to the officer on his left, who moved in from the side, and disarmed Gloria, in one swift, practiced motion. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Gloria screamed, not words, just sound. Raw animal fury pouring out of a woman who had spent decades controlling everything and everyone around her, and had finally, irrevocably, lost that control. Gloria Williams, you are under arrest for assault, false imprisonment, coercive control, financial fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and suspicion of murder in the death of Richard Williams. As they led her through the front door, the neighborhood was watching. Porch lights on, faces in windows. Tanya Webb stood on her front lawn, notebook in hand, watching the woman she had documented for months being put into the back of a police car. Pastor James Butler was there too, standing on the sidewalk in his overcoat, having been called by Morgan as a courtesy. Gloria saw him and screamed, "James, tell them who I am. Tell them I am innocent." The pastor's face was stone. "Gloria, I listened to the detective's evidence, and then I went back and looked at the church's financial records, the Women's Shelter Fund, the one you managed, $47,000 missing over 5 years, from a fund for abused women." He turned and walked away without another word. Gloria Williams was loaded into the patrol car. The door slammed, the engine started, and 47 Westbrook Lane, the perfect suburban home with the immaculate kitchen and the pristine white fence, fell silent for the first time in months. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming and merciless. Daniel's nanny cam footage was played for the jury. 12 people watched in silence as a 62-year-old woman slapped, kicked, starved, and psychologically tortured her pregnant daughter-in-law. Several jurors cried. One had to leave the room. The recorded confession was played twice. Gloria's voice, cold and calculating, laying out her plan to steal Maya's baby and arrange Maya's death. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the ventilation system humming. Tanya Webb took the stand and presented her notebook. 43 entries. Dates, times, observations. The prosecution called it the most detailed civilian documentation of domestic abuse they had ever seen. Dr. Harold Webb, having cooperated fully, testified about the fraudulent psychiatric diagnosis. He described how Gloria had pressured him into writing the letter, leveraging their church friendship and his own insecurities. His medical license was revoked. He was sentenced to 3 years for medical fraud. The life insurance policy was entered into evidence. $500,000 on Maya's life, taken out 3 months before the arrest, with Gloria as sole beneficiary. The jury foreman later told reporters that the life insurance policy was the moment every member of the jury decided Gloria Williams was guilty. The cold case investigation into Richard Williams's death produced new forensic evidence. Bruise patterns on his body, preserved in the original autopsy photos, were consistent with being pushed from behind, not falling forward. A forensic pathologist testified that the injuries were inconsistent with an accidental fall. Gloria was charged with second-degree murder in her husband's death. Through it all, Gloria sat at the defense table in her Sunday best, Bible on her lap, insisting she was innocent. Her attorney, a public defender who had drawn the shortest straw in the history of the office, Fuss, did his best, but there was nothing to work with. The evidence was a tidal wave. On the last day of trial, Maya stood before the court and delivered her victim impact statement. She wore a simple blue dress. Her hair was pulled back. She looked thin, but strong, like a tree that had bent in a hurricane and was still standing. Your Honor, members of the jury, Gloria Williams told me I was nothing. She told me every day for 6 months that I was worthless, that nobody would ever believe me, that I had no power, no voice, no value. She told me I was alone. Maya paused. She looked at Rachel, sitting in the front row, crying silently. She looked at Daniel, who sat with his head bowed. She looked at the Detective Morgan, stoic, as always, but with suspiciously bright eyes. She was wrong. I was never alone, even when I thought I was, because there were people watching, people who cared, people who refused to look away even when it was easier. A best friend who drove 300 miles on a feeling, a neighbor who kept a notebook, a detective who believed me when nobody else did, a nurse who asked the right question at the right time. Maya's voice grew stronger. I am not standing here because I am brave. I am standing here because I survived, and surviving is enough. Surviving is everything, because as long as you survive, you get another chance to fight, another chance to speak, another chance to be heard. She looked directly at Gloria. You tried to break me. You tried to take my voice, my freedom, my baby, my life, and you almost succeeded. But almost is not enough, Gloria. Almost means I am still here, and I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure that no woman ever feels as alone as you made me feel. The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge did not stop it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Gloria Williams was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. On the murder charge related to Richard Williams' death, an additional 15 years was added to run consecutively. Gloria would die in prison. As the bailiffs led her away, Gloria turned to look at Maya one final time. For a brief, flickering moment, something crossed her face. Not remorse. Gloria was not capable of remorse, but recognition, perhaps. An acknowledgement that she had underestimated the quiet, scared woman she had tried to destroy. Then the courtroom door closed, and Gloria Williams disappeared from Maya's life forever. In the weeks that followed, the pieces fell into place one by one. The money Gloria had stolen from Daniel's accounts was recovered. The $47,000 embezzled from the church's women's shelter fund was returned. The shelter itself was renamed in a small ceremony attended by the congregation and local veterans. They called it the Lieutenant Joseph Adams Safe Haven, a shelter for abused women and their children, named after a soldier who had taught his daughter to never surrender. Maya cried at the ceremony, not from sadness, from pride. Grace was born 3 weeks after the trial ended, on a quiet Tuesday morning in a hospital room filled with flowers. Rachel was there, holding Maya's hand through every contraction, making inappropriate jokes that made Maya laugh between the waves of pain. Girl, I drove 300 miles and staked out your mother-in-law's house like a detective in a bad movie. The least you can do is let me be in the delivery room. You are the worst, Maya gasped between contractions. I am the best, and you know it. Daniel was there too. He had not missed a single appointment, a single class, a single moment since the night he wore the wire. He and Maya were in therapy, both couples and individual. It was slow, painful work. Some days Maya could barely look at him. Some days he could barely look at himself. But he showed up. Every day he showed up. And slowly, carefully, they were rebuilding something from the rubble. Grace entered the world at 6:47 in the morning, screaming with the full force of her tiny lungs. She was small, but healthy, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness, and a grip strength that made the nurses laugh. Rachel held her first and immediately burst into tears. She has got your face, Maya, and based on those lungs, she has got my personality. This kid is going to be trouble. In the days and weeks and months that followed, Maya healed. Not completely, maybe not ever completely. Some nights she still woke up gasping, certain she could hear Gloria's footsteps on the stairs. Some days a slammed door, or a raised voice sent her heart racing. The scars, visible and invisible, would be with her forever. But she was alive. Grace was alive. And every morning, when Maya held her daughter and watched the sun come through the window of their small house, the house she had bought with the recovered money and furnished with help from Rachel and Tanya and the church community that had finally opened its eyes, she felt something that Gloria had tried to kill and failed: hope. 1 year after Gloria's sentencing, Maya received a letter. Not from Gloria, from a stranger. A woman named Jennifer, from a town 2 states over, who had seen the news coverage of the trial and recognized her own story in Maya's words. I have been living with my mother-in-law for 3 years. She does everything you described. Nobody believes me. My husband thinks I am crazy. I do not know what to do. I do not know who to call. But when I heard what you said in court, when you said that surviving is enough, I thought maybe I could survive too. Can you help me? Maya read the letter 3 times. Then she picked up the phone and called Rachel. I want to start something. A group. A place where women, like Jennifer, like me, can come and be believed. Where they can hear someone say you are not crazy and you are not alone and there is a way out. About time, Rachel said. I have been waiting for you to say that. I already found us an office space. Of course you did. Maya hung up and looked at Grace, who was sitting on the living room floor, chewing enthusiastically on a stuffed bear that Rachel had given her, the one with the tag that read, My auntie is my favorite. You know what your grandpa used to say? Maya picked up her daughter and held her close. He said never surrender. Even when the battle seems lost, you keep fighting. He was right about that. But he left out the most important part. Grace looked up at her mother with wide, curious eyes. The most important part is knowing that you do not have to fight alone. You were never supposed to fight alone. And the moment you reach out your hand, someone will take it. Maybe not the first person, maybe not the second, but someone will. Someone always will. She kissed Grace's forehead. You are going to grow up knowing that, baby girl. You are going to grow up knowing that your voice matters, that your pain is real, that you deserve to be safe and loved and believed. And if anyone ever tries to tell you otherwise, if anyone ever tries to make you small, you look them in the eye and you tell them what your mama learned the hard way. Maya held her daughter against her chest and listened to the small, steady heartbeat that she had protected through the darkest chapter of her life. You tell them, I am still here, and I am not going anywhere. Outside, the sun climbed higher over the quiet street. A new day, a new beginning. Somewhere far away, behind concrete walls and barbed wire, Gloria Williams sat in a cell and stared at the ceiling, alone with the silence she had earned. And here, in a small house with mismatched furniture and a refrigerator covered in baby photos, and a front door that was never, ever locked from the outside, Maya Adams Williams was free. Not just free from Gloria, free to live, free to love, free to heal, free to help, free to be the mother, the friend, the woman she was always meant to be. The nightmare was over. The healing had begun. And the light that Gloria had tried so hard to extinguish, burned brighter than ever. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone. You are not nothing. You are worth fighting for. Thank you for watching. Tell us in the comments which part of the story moved you the most. Like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you in the next video. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with real emotional impact and genuine life lessons. Every character, every scene, and every twist was crafted with purpose to entertain, to educate, and to remind you that no matter how dark things get, there is always a way forward. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next story.